let's take a look at some of these Siemens HMI activities. So right here we're going to create an HMI screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just draw a little screen here that's going to represent our HMI. Okay, and it's going to have a push button on it that will turn on the indicator light. So I'm going to put a push button onto here, and I'll make that round, I guess, and I'm going to turn on an indicator light. And so I guess I'm going to put another push button on here, or excuse me, another button on here, but that's going to be a light. So this represents a push button, and I could label it as push button. And I could add a label to this as a light. The HMI will let you do that. So I got a push button and a light. So now the push button turns on the light. So when I create this push button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a bit address of bit 0, and I'm going to call this bit 1. Okay? Because these don't exist, bits are fictional, and this is a HMI screen, and you can see these, but they're not real. They were just programmed. Okay? And then so what I would do is I would write ladder logic, and this would be in the PLC, so that M0 turns on M1. So the PLC treats this M0 as an input, and it treats this M1 as an output, and so when I push this, this becomes true, and that comes on. It says add additional logic, PB1 or an HMI turns on the indicator light. So now what I want to do is I want to add PB1. So what I would do is I would hook up push button 1 into my I/O module, and I would change my ladder logic right here, and I would put PB1 here, and that is actually going to be like input 1, let's say input 1, and that would be my PB1. And if I looked at my I/O module, my input right here on number 1, I would have a push button wired into it, right? And so when I made this push button, I would get the signal on the input module for channel 1, and that would become true, and the light would come on. So either pushing the fictional button on the HMI or the real button would turn on that light on the HMI. The second one down here says create a project, an HMI project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to once again create a little HMI screen there. Button 1, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something here. It looks like this is a button 1, it says, or PB1. So over on my input module, I'm going to have somewhere I'm going to have a push button, 1 PB hooked into my input module. Okay. Energize a motor starter and a light. So on my output module, I'm going to have a, I guess a motor starter, and I'm going to have a light. Okay, and a light. HMI button 2 or PB2. So now I've got a second PB right here, and I've got another button 2. So I'm going to go ahead and make my addresses. These are fictional. We could make this the first bit. We could make this the second bit and designate them as inputs. This might be input 1. This might be input 2. This might be Q1, and this might be Q2, my outputs. Okay, so here we go. Now what we do is we just program the ladder logic. HMI button 1, which is right here, which would be M0, or PB1, which is I1, turn on a motor starter. So here I'm going to turn on my motor starter here, which is Q1, and a light. I'll put them in parallel. We could certainly put them in series. So this or this turns on the motor starter and the light. HMI button 2 turns off that. So apparently, I guess we're assuming that there's some memory here. So if I put memory here, I could use one of these to hold it. There's my latch. Okay, and now HMI button 2 or PB2. So I got a PB2 with this. I guess if I put this here, pushing M1 would break that latch, or push button 2. Yeah, so I put this here, PB2, which is I2, would break that latch. Okay? Now if you really wanted to get crazy and you wanted something to come up on the screen right here, you could put some type of a light to say that you were running. Okay, so if I did start it, and this was on, maybe the HMI would indicate that it was running. Well, then what I would have to do is I'd have to make this a bit, M2, and then I would have this turn on M2 as well, and therefore when I hit this or this, I would get Q1 and Q2 to come on, and Q and M2, so this would come on as well. I'd get the motor started light and then the HMI light, and I'd use memory. I could have used any one of these for memory, and then either one of these would shut it off. So pretty straightforward.